first video to sit down and do this one, and it's been very difficult. I mean, crazy, because this next part that I have to explain before going into the chain of events that took place is the most personal to me, because it involves how this whole thing started, which involves my mother, my biological mother. Her name's Jennifer. Throughout this video, I'm going to try to keep it as short as I possibly can. You will hear me refer to her as my mom, and you will hear me refer to her as Jennifer. And I need you guys to know that's the same person. Today, when I speak of her as an individual, I refer to her by her government name, Jennifer. I do not call her my mom. I do not see her as a mother. I am an only child, so it would be different if I had a sibling that she was actually mothering, but I do not. When I talk about my youth, I will say my mom. Because another thing that needs to be remembered is that Jennifer was not always a horrible parent. That is not what I remember from my childhood. I remember her actually being one of my closer parents within my parents' step-parent situation dynamics. She was a great mom when I was little. I don't know what happened. I don't know when that changed. I don't know how it changed. It happened slowly. It happened over a few years, and it's still unbelievable. But in order to explain what happened, I need to explain this crazy motive of hers. Because otherwise, there's going to be doubt. You are going to be like, why would a mother ever do this? Why would anyone do this to someone else? Nevertheless, someone's own biological mother. So I'm going to explain that right now. I'm going to explain where her hatred and spite for me comes from. And it's very important to remember this. Okay. When I was 25, my father, Dan T. Spence, rest in peace, amazing man, passed away, and he left me in his will, his estate. He left me my grandparents' home. It was over like by Indian River Bowling Alley. Okay, this was a house that had been in my family forever. I'm pretty sure my grandparents bought the house when they first got married, and then after they passed away, he ended up getting it, and then he left it for me. Now, I was 25. Deacon was just a baby. We lived over in next to Ocean Pebble off of Norfolk Avenue at the beach. I was bartending full time. Travis and I had already separated, and that comes all into this too. But he left me this house, and I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't want to rent it out. I didn't want to sell it because it was my family's home. And it just so happened to be at that time, Jennifer's husband, I don't know if they're still legally married. I know they legally divorced a few years ago so that he could further milk the disability system, but it's neither here nor there. He had suffered a back injury or something that he was claiming along those lines. He could not work, so she was the only one bringing in income for him and her. And they were living in Ocean Pebbles, the neighborhood next. I was living in like Sawgrass, and they were living in Ocean Pebbles, the neighborhood next to where me and Deacon lived. I liked living at the ocean front. It's very much my home. It's where I feel comfortable. And he could no longer work, and they were about to get evicted from Ocean Pebbles because they couldn't pay their rent. That's what she said. That's what she told me. Chris can't work. We're on one income. I can't pay this rent. And it just so happened that this happened right around the time when my father passed away and I had been given this house. So, of course, knowing that I didn't want to move into this house at the time, I was not going to let my mom be homeless. I was like, go stay at grandma's house. Go live there. You and Chris can live there as long as you need to. I said, you don't have to pay me any rent. My only conditions were that they kept up on the personal property tax every year, which wasn't very much because it's kind of an older home and not really a great area. She agreed. So then they lived there rent-free for 10 years. 10 years. And I never had a problem with that. I would have let them live there forever. But we're going to fast forward to 2019, where I was in a very abusive marriage. And I was living in military housing at this point. My husband's name was Josh. He was psychologically, emotionally, crazy abusive towards me in the most covert ways that nobody knew. And I'm not the type of person who goes and just screams out my business. That's not me. That's not my style. So I reached out to Jennifer a couple times. She wasn't really there for me, but I was kind of like, okay, I'm going to deal with this on my own. So it came to a point where I said, this isn't working. Ramona had even failed the second grade. She had to repeat the second grade because of this tension in our home. And that's going to actually come full circle later on in the story, and you're going to see why I'm saying that now. And he said to me, this was after my annuity from my dad's estate had run out like a year prior, because I was getting annuity the whole time we were married from my dad's estate monthly. He knew that I was very sick. He knew that I was disabled. The military had confirmed that through the Exemptional Family Members Program. He said to me, I knew that we had to separate. I knew that. And I knew that for the safety of my children. And I'm going to tell you something right now. As a child of divorce, I learned a long time ago in my youth that it is much better to come from a broken home than to live in a broken home. And so anybody who's thinking we need to stay together for the kids, if it's that toxic, you're not doing your kids any favors. And I learned that as a child, even when my parents divorced when I was 6. And I wasn't even really sad about it because I was kind of like, even at 6, I was like, it's probably for the best. Anywho, so I said, this isn't working. It's my job to show my daughter what a woman is supposed to be treated like. And he was not treating me in a way that I would ever accept for my child. I cannot tell my children how a woman is supposed to be treated. I need to show them. That's my job. As their mother, I need to show them by example how she deserves to be treated. And likewise, I needed to show my son how he's to treat a lady. And it wasn't the way Josh was treating me. As much as I wanted to save that marriage, I knew that I could not do that for the sake of my children, because the examples that they were being set were atrocious, and they will carry those experiences into adulthood and expect the same thing in there. That's just how, psychologically, that's just how child minds work. They learn by what you show them, and then they go on to live it. That's just how it happens. So when I said, Josh, we can either do therapy or we need to split up, he refused therapy for months and then finally was like, I'll leave. But this was his stipulation. I'll leave, but you have to pay off all of my credit card debt. Now keep in mind, we were legally married, but these were credit cards that were in his name, but we did both contribute to that debt. And I didn't, and I was like, okay, I don't feel bad about that. I created that debt just as much as you did. I understand. So, being so sick and not having, I didn't have anything. He knew I didn't have anything. I said to him, in order, because it was about $14,000 in credit card debt that he needed to get rid of. His reasoning was that he wouldn't be able to afford to support himself outside that home and support me and the children inside military housing with these huge credit card bills that he had. That made sense to me. That still makes sense to me. I had no problem helping him out in that way because it was for my kids. It was everything. Everything has been for my kids. Everything. And I said to him, I said, I'm going to have to sell the house that my father left me in order to give you that money. And he said, okay. And Jennifer and Chris had resided there for 10 years. I had no intentions ever, not for 2 seconds, to just leave them high and dry. I always told them that I was going to give them seed money to help them get back on their feet. It wasn't like I was just putting them on the streets out of nowhere. That's not what happened. It was never what was going to happen. So he said, okay. He said, okay, sell that house. And I was upset about it that, I wasn't going to be able to house my mother and her disabled husband anymore. But I knew that this is what I had to do. I had to do this to protect my children's mental and psychological well-being and get this man away from them. So I told Jennifer, I told Chris, they were not happy about it. She fought me. It took months to get all of this going. And technically, I would not have had to give them any money from the sale of that house. Technically, had we gone to court, because the free rent that they had accrued over 10 years was way more than the value of the home, they would have owed me money legally. I didn't do that. I didn't want that. When the lawyers were drawing this out, even the lawyer was like, and I told them, I said, no, I want to give them money. I'm not just putting my parents on the street. That's not okay. I can't do that. And I ended up giving Jennifer and Chris $20,000 from the sale of that home for seed money. And ever since then, ever since I sold that house, even though they not only profited for 10 years of free rent and then $20,000 on top of it, or a home that they didn't buy, she has been trying to destroy me. And that will continue to show throughout my accounts of the truth of what happened. I genuinely thought $20,000 would be enough to make my mom still love me, even though this was a shitty situation and it wasn't something that I wanted to do. But I was wrong. And Chris, her husband, boyfriend, whatever, from that point on, began to set up dominoes for my downfall behind my back. And that will come out very clearly in the next video. It's hard. It's hard to know that my mom sold me down the river because I could no longer house her. And the $20,000 I gave her from the sale of that house, even though I didn't have to, pretty much paid her rent, I'm assuming, for the next year when she lived in an apartment until her mom bought her the house that she's in now. So she's not someone who's paid for rent or mortgage or anything else since my dad passed away in 2010. So 14 years, this woman has not paid Her husband has not paid. They've been milking the disability system, or Chris's disability, when he seems perfectly fine to me. I don't know. So that was it. That was the only reason for money that all of this happened to me. And Jennifer had a huge hand in perpetuating this whole thing and even starting it. And that story is going to come out too. My next video is going to be an account of the first time that she really, really did me dirty. You will see my children being groomed in that story. It is all completely fact. It can be checked. And it's something that was horrible and traumatic, and I never said anything to anybody because I wanted all of this to go away. I know that there are people who are going to be like, why are you saying this? You should be staying quiet to protect your children. But if you continue to tune in and pay attention, you will see that that's all I've been doing for the last 3-4 years, was trying to protect my children from this. That's all I've been doing. There are going to be things that come out that the people now who might think, why is she talking, are going to be like, oh my God, why didn't you say something sooner? That's not my style. That's not how I deal with trauma. For me personally, when something bad or traumatic happens to me, I take the lesson from it and I leave the garbage in my past because I don't need that moving forward. Something bad happens, okay, well, as far as we know as human beings right now, time is linear. We can't go back, And I thought that by burying all of these things, I was hoping that it would all just dissipate. I was hoping they would stop. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me that they haven't stopped yet. Because now I'm being forced to do this to protect my children. What did they think was going to happen? Like, it's crazy. So I just want to say, this was hard. I'm trying to keep these videos as short as possible. I didn't even really watch the last one. I did get to a part of it where I mentioned TikTok, and that's not what I meant. What I meant to say was Twitter. I don't know anything about TikTok either, but apparently it's not even called Twitter anymore. It's called like X or Q or Z or one of those other letters that we don't really use that much. So I'm still working on that. I'm still working on tweeting, whatever. But I just want to say, too, thank you again for all the support, all the love, everything in my DMs that you guys are saying. Like, my gratitude is boundless to the people who are paying attention. And I know that everybody's got their own stuff going on. Y'all got your own kids, your own jobs, your own lives. Like, for anybody to even look up at me and what's happening to my kids fills me with the most gratitude. And hopefully I'll be able to just keep going and hit the stop button and record the next video, because it took me over a week to grow the balls to sit down and do this one. I hope that people can see what happened to me and learn and take that as fair warning that this could happen to anyone. It really could. If the right people are involved and all the pieces come together just perfectly. I mean, I don't know, guys. But thank you. Thank you for everybody's support. I did start a GoFundMe under courthouse kidnapping, and I don't think I was doing it yet. I don't know that anybody will, and you don't have to. I mean, times are tight. A burger at McDonald's is like freaking $10 right now. It's ridiculous. Y'all got your own stuff. It would be helpful in like my legal fees, and I have accrued medical bills from having my appendix removed, and my pancreas started failing this past year right around my daughter's birthday, which was weird because I'm not a heavy drinker. I've never experienced pancreatic problems before. But I did have to spend 4 nights in Virginia Beach General to be stabilized. I was very, very, very sick, and without that medical intervention, I would not be here today. That's, to me, that seems like pretty solid evidence that this is affecting me physically. This trauma, and my psyche is okay. Mentally, I'm okay. Kind of, I guess. I mean, I'm getting through it like you do. My body is noticing. So I have a lot of medical bills. I'll have future medical bills. Jonathan Brown of Social Services, still doing everything he can to block any kind of Medicaid, any kind of SNAP benefits, any kind of anything. So, you know, the list goes on. And the layers are many. But I just wanted to thank you for watching, for tuning in. Also, I want to let everyone know that I have forgiven Jennifer already in my mind. I haven't told her that because we don't speak. I don't think that, I know we'll never have a relationship. We don't speak. I haven't heard from her in over a year probably. And when I did, it was just little dumb things. So I just want to thank everyone. I'm doing the best I can. I still talk to my dad who's, passed away. And I keep saying, like, because I'm not a religious person, but I do think I can feel him, his strength inside me. And I keep saying, Dad, this is hard. This is so hard for me. And I just hear him in his voice saying, well, suck it up, buttercup, because life is hard. And that was his attitude throughout my childhood. And he was right. I'm glad he had that attitude. And I'm glad that he instilled that upon me. So once again, thank you. I'm going to try to do this next one, like now. So I can, like, relax for a couple days and not worry about this. But I just wanted to say thank you. And I wanted to explain, even though for a regular parent, for any normal loving parent, that motivation of spite and greed and money isn't going to make a lot of sense because there isn't any amount of all the money in the world that you could offer me that would make me give up on my children. Never, never. There's no monetary value that could take place in my children. It's not, and I feel like most parents, loving parents, are that way. So even knowing why Jennifer decided to do this atrocious shit to me, it still is unbelievable. It is still baffling. I don't want anybody to feel sympathy for me because I don't feel like a victim. I feel like a survivor. I feel like bad things happen, horrible people happen. You don't expect those people to be one of your parents, but life's weird. I don't know. But thank you all. And I'm going to post this and just try to keep going.